to welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Daily Cheat Sheet. We'll be joined by the dude very soon. Golan is, of course, with me right now. And breaking news from Golan. Golan was just banned from Instagram and Facebook, joining the likes of me, who has been banned from most dating sites. So I can't date. And Golan, you are not afforded the luxury of being on social media sites anymore.
Man, I had no idea being a crass propagandist was going to get me kicked off. That's what everyone else seems to be doing. So I just kind of went with the flow. Yeah, I don't know. Today, I actually don't post that often. When I post, it's usually posting something about the show or about my other podcast, putting up a clip or something like that. Not long ago, I did post, as I read to our audience, a thing about, fuck you, Ayatollah Khomeini. But beyond that, I don't really post that much. So the idea that I got kicked off here, I don't blame Zuckerberg himself, because I'm sure it wasn't even a human being. I'm sure it was just a computer. But just the fact that that still exists, that I can basically be anti-IRGC or anti-Khomeini and or pro-Israel or pro-Jewish, and as profane as anybody else, I can show you 100 things that I've reported that basically are calling for the death of Jews. That, they say, no, this one didn't violate anything. Sit down and shut up. I was surprised that today, after not having been on for days and days, I received a note that said, you are suspended, and I'm not going to give you a reason why. You just kind of violated some kind of code that nobody knows about. Also, you can appeal. You can't tell us what you think you did right or work against the narrative, because we didn't tell you what you did wrong, and we're not going to give you an opportunity to anyway. You can click this button right here, and this button says appeal. I clicked that button, and then it said, thanks. If we don't agree, in 180 days, we permanently delete your account. Thanks for playing. I'm going to take it as a badge of honor.
The same thing happened to me, though. I'm not kidding, with the dating sites. And they said you can appeal. So I clicked the appeal button. And I'm not kidding, 30 seconds later, it said, your appeal has been denied.
I took that appeal seriously, really considered it. The judges convened.
Right. But I think it's really important, though, with what you're talking about, because this was a big thought we had, that Zuckerberg was changing. And that's a great lie. It was a lie. I mean, obviously, he's under immense pressure for his company being broken up. He went on Rogan, of course, and he lied. I mean, this is what the thing, we cannot trust these people. We could trust Elon. We cannot, and I know some people have gotten banned, but Zuckerberg is not to be trusted.
I'll be honest with you, I don't trust anybody. I trust you sometimes, but I don't trust anybody. My kids are suspect. Look, in this world, I feel like, especially when you're talking about social media, and especially even governmental figures, like, we have certain people that we like in the government. We have certain people we don't. A friend of mine just sat down with Fetterman and told me that he's as genuine in person as he is when he is speaking on Bill Maher or any of these podcasts, or when he's speaking on the floor. So, I trust a guy like that, but I also don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I have seen too much. I used to listen to Tucker Carlson when he was on Fox News pretty religiously. I really enjoyed his monologues. I don't think I watched his whole show, but I always watched the monologues. Even when I disagreed, I was like, very interesting, good points, whatever. I had a similar relationship with Candace Owens for a little while, even, where I would listen to her and be like, all right, a little crazy, but like, I can see the seeds of some good ideas in there. 5 minutes later, they're the Stormer Party. But I don't trust anybody. So when I see someone who, for not just months, but years, was authoritarian and shutting down schools of thought and banning people for saying things that they deemed not okay, that later we found out actually were fact, and all of that. And then suddenly Trump gets into office and they're like, you know what? I'm a kickboxer like Joe Rogan, and I can't wait to go MAGA. Woohoo! I kind of fuck you. I never bought it to begin with.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. And as I brought up with you, here's the reason I really think this is important to talk about. There are a lot of people that are not aware of this. I've had many conversations when I explain to people that, when I also have the podcast with Ben Stein, The World According to Ben Stein, where we had 50 episodes pulled. They were pulling episodes after I had decided to leave the platform, from COVID to election stuff. Anything that they deemed, we were questioning the science, we were questioning the elections, they pulled out, they pulled them down a year after we stopped putting shows up. And we were not a big show, so they weren't exactly always going into the biggest shows. They sometimes often hit those in the middle because, you can't hit the big ones, but you could hit the ones in the middle.
Right. You go for
And
the vulnerable ones. You go for the ones that don't have the platform to be able to fight back in the same way. But by the way, I keep saying when people tell me, someone today said to me, I couldn't believe it. I saw a protest in London where people were protesting on behalf of Iran. And I couldn't believe that they were pro-Iran. And I said to her, no, you've missed the point. They're not pro-Iran. They don't even know what they're talking about. Half of those people are paid, and the other half show up and say, which sign are you going to give me today? Is it the Hezbollah flag? Is it the Mexican flag? Is it the pro-trans rights flag? Is it the Free Palestine flag? Or today it's the Free Iran flag? They don't even know what they're talking about. They just ask for the thing and they take it and they blindly and brainlessly walk around with it. And online, it's the same thing. They have a doctrine. That doctrine, it doesn't matter when it shows up, it becomes the doctrine. So whether that was men and girls sports, whether that was the election, whether that was COVID, all the things that you probably got stuff pulled for, it's because one day they decided these are gospel, these are all true, whether they were or not. And then now everybody who didn't say that, who we can get away with it with, just got it yanked.
okay, so moving on though, I think it's I got a critique from somebody about our last show, and it's somebody whose opinion I respect greatly. They're on Truth Social and somebody that I like. And they said, I think you're talking about the Tucker stuff too much. She couldn't be nicer, this person, but she was unaware of what was going on with Tucker Carlson until I said, this is not just a little story. And then the New York Post had reported on it, that Tucker Carlson was going after Trump for, because Tucker is a 1940 America First committee type of isolationist, a Lindbergh, Ford type person. And she was really unaware of this. And she started posting these articles about Tucker and these other people like Candace Owens and all of this stuff. And she realized, oh, this wasn't hyperbolic. This was actually going on. And I'm very grateful for Trump's response, because go on, MAGA without Trump could become 1940s MAGA. What separates America First now and America First then is Donald Trump realizing there's a world outside, and sometimes we do need to intervene, because in the 1940 they did not want us intervening in World War II. By that metric, we probably would have been speaking German. There are far more Muslims right now, go on, than there are Germans. Arabic is a much harder language to learn, go on.
And you know who loves this, by the way? Iran loves it. Hamas loves it. Hezbollah, China, Russia. They see someone like Tucker and all of his acolytes calling to ditch Israel, or Democrats accusing Bibi of genocide, and we get that nice horseshoe theory where they both come together and all of the bad actors on the world stage are laughing. They're laughing not only at us, they're laughing like maniacally, like Pinky in the Brain, let's take over the world. Because when the American left and the American right unite to abandon freedom, that's when the bad guys win. And so right now, the far left and the far right are meeting in the same anti-Israel, anti-strength, even anti-American cesspool.
Where does the isolation start? Here's the major thing that nobody brings up with the flaw in the isolationist argument. So Trump right now is at the G7. It used to be the G8 minus Russia. Should we attend the G7? I mean, we're isolationists. Why go? Should we do business with China? Should we do business with Europe? Should we do trade? Should we just make everything here and live in our own country, kick everybody out that we don't want, that we deem unworthy of being Americans? And there's this litmus test that's going on, sadly, within that MAGA movement.
And the question becomes this: if we just hunker down and hide ourselves away and don't do anything on the world stage, and we stop becoming the world's, let's say, the world's police, that they would say, or the world's hegemon against bad actors, or whatever it is, who will lead the free world? Who is it? The CCP? The UN? The Hamas TikTokers? Who's going to run the place? Who's going to make sure that everyone is staying in line in one way or another? Do we honestly believe that all the bad actors, like the current Iranian regime, which probably won't stand much longer, will stop hating us because we stayed home and minded our own business? Is that what we really believe? Also, when Soviet tanks are rolling through Europe, would we have told Reagan to sit down and shut up, or hidden ourselves away and hoped that it never would have affected us when someone is taking over the entirety of the rest of the world? In the end, they call it isolationism. I call it surrender with better branding, because they're not talking about America first anymore. They're talking about America alone.
Really well
Right?
put. I like that
Thank
a
you.
lot. I mean, listen, it's perfectly said. I don't ever want to say people are insignificant. We cannot allow Marjorie Taylor Greene's, Tucker Carlson's, Candace Owens to take over. So we have to put out the brush fire now. The Democrats thought they could do a controlled burn for about 60 years and control the people in their party. And poof, 2020 happened, go on, and the fire burst.
And today, when people are asked who is the leader of the Democratic Party, who is the face of the Democratic Party, every single time it's the same name. It's AOC, that psycho harpy who is absolutely on the wild side of anti-American, anti-Western, anti-Israeli, morality left. And the fact that she is the same person who stands on a stage with Jamal Bowman shouting wildly about anti-Jewish rhetoric and also is meant to be the face of what's called the liberal party is insane. The world has gone mad on that side of the equation. Yes, now there is what they call a woke right, or what I call the barnstormer right. And it's the same thing because of that horseshoe theory we keep coming back to. The idea that I can't tell the difference between a Tucker Carlson monologue and a Rashida Tlaib monologue anymore means they may have different reasons for getting there, but they're saying the same thing. And the fact that they can't see it, I think, tells you a lot. And it's the same thing as you pointed out. If you go all the way back to 1938 and you look at today, they have the exact same situation happening. And the only thing standing in the way of it being the same then as it was now is Donald Trump, who says we have a morality. We don't know the details of it. So I'm going to speak a little out of school here, just based on what we're seeing. But it looks like he had at least a strategic hand in what's going on with Israel and Iran. And he continues to speak against the Iranian regime, saying, you better make a deal because my junkyard dog Israel is going to keep coming at you and it's going to get more brutal. So it seems like he is on the side of goodness and morality and destroying a terrorist regime. But it's the same thing as back then when Neville Chamberlain waved a piece of paper and said, this is enough. This will be peace. That's it.
And Joe Kennedy.
And absolutely, and Joe Kennedy. But it's take that and supplant it to today when Tucker Carlson says, let Israel fight their own fights. That's a strategy. That's weakness sold as wisdom. That's appeasement dressed up as pragmatism. And that is where we see that weakness when it comes to the America alone, because they're not America first. Because America first means if we see danger coming in the distance, we don't let it get all the way up to our front door before we do something about it.
Perfectly said. And here's the point, by the way. When we were like in the 1940s or early 1930s or late 1930s saying it's their problem, Britain was getting bombed to hell. Everything was going on, and we were sitting there on the sidelines. I mean, when you look at it, the UK is not that far away from America. So take Jews out of the equation. The goal was to take over Europe. Okay, that was the goal. If you take Israel out of the Middle East, that war of Islam coming to a store near you. When you look at the European Union go on right now, Islam, that's what they've been indoctrinated. It is a hop, skip, and a jump. The only reason why Islam has not invaded fully other places is because Israel's there in the middle.
That's right. There's a short film that was made where you see a big boulder coming down, rolling down a mountain towards a community of people. And this giant robot runs down the mountain and stops the rock. But in doing so, the back end of him knocks over a flag. Everyone in the community is yelling and throwing rocks. How dare you knock down our flag, you robot? And then he's like, do you not realize I'm holding the boulder that would have crushed your entire community? And finally, he just shrugs, moves out of the way, and the boulder flattens the community completely. And so someone took that short film that had nothing to do with Israel, had nothing to do with the world. It was just a funny short. And they put on the boulder Islamists, and they put on the robot Israel, and they put on the rest of the community the world. That's what's happening now. We are literally right now, as we've done many times over throughout history, preventing Iraq from getting the bomb, preventing all these other, usually Islamist societies from getting the bomb, we're doing it yet again. We are stopping Iran from getting the bomb. Something that, by the way, Netanyahu has been talking about basically his entire professional career.
And that's the counter argument. You keep on seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson showing the years that they've been saying this, that Iran's
Right.
getting closer, Iran's getting closer. And I think to myself now, well, as these ballistic missiles are hitting Israel and penetrating the Iron Dome and the David's Arrow and the Sling and every other system, is that not real? Was like Iran not building up their hypersonic ballistic missile program? Is that fake? Are we witnessing the uranium plants being blown up, imploding on themselves? Do you think that's just the ground going beneath itself? That doesn't occur. You don't just see Golan Earth disappear unless there's something under that Earth that has the potential to blow up.
Not only is it real, but they haven't really been hiding it. We know that Iran has been building up their missile arsenals. We know that even though Israel did an amazing operation and knocked out 20 to 25% of the missiles they have, that leaves them with about 1,500 missiles that they're still lobbing into Israel. And they know that, let's say, I don't know the exact number, and it doesn't matter what the exact number is. So anyone listening from the Iranian regime, I'm not giving you actual information. I'm saying a rhetorical number. Let's say it's 50 missiles at a time overwhelms the defense system. So they know 51 means one's going to land, and one missile could be enough to knock out 9 to 10 buildings and make 1,000 people homeless and all the rest. So they know that. And so they're carefully meting it out. They also know if they only send 10 at a time, we can knock them out really easy. So they're really being careful about it. But they've also been verbal about it. They've been threatening these things. We already watched them launch the greatest number of missiles in one time in history towards Israel just a handful of months ago. So it's not like this is something where we're like, oh my God, they had missiles. Oh my God, they're trying to do a nuclear program. Oh my, they've been open and threatening all of this. And even the Obama deal was predicated on the fact that they were doing this. So the idea that we can all stick our heads in the sand and pretend it never existed, or that this was all just a manufactured narrative by the Jews or whatever, it's ludicrous.
The Rothschilds. Let's be real.
Excuse me, the Rothschilds. Yes.
So let's just go with the Rothschilds. But it's also at that point, where do you stop? Where does that theory stop? Does North Korea, are they faking it? Do they not have nukes? Maybe nobody has nukes, go on. Maybe Russia doesn't have nukes. I mean, this is the theory, the working theory we have to go by with what they're presenting, that nobody has nukes except for the United States. I mean, the logic, and this is why Tucker won't debate or Candace Owens won't debate. And the reason why this is news is because this is a huge story. Okay, this is to me one of the biggest stories of the day. As the world is crumbling, we have people in our country who don't want it to crumble, who I don't really understand, but they will never debate anybody that could critically debate them on actual knowledge. And if
Absolutely.
You're not willing to get on a stage with somebody like a Mark Levin or like even a you or a Mend is extremely telling. And yesterday, General Mike Flynn went on Steve Bannon's show, and I think Bannon was in shock that Flynn was fully supporting this. And you're going to see those little factions. So final take on this.
Almost everything they say is not based or steeped in any kind of historical fact. So when you say something like, oh, the missiles don't exist, maybe if we all clap hard enough, Tinkerbell will come back to life. Like, all of the shit is based on fantasy. And one of the major things that they say on a regular basis is about how the American army is getting involved in the boots on the ground, and how many of our men and women have to blood in the soil for the Jews and all this, when they are forgetting to mention that never throughout the history of the world has the American military ever had boots on the ground in any of Israel's wars. Ever. Not in 48, not in 56, not in 67, not in 73, not in 82, not even when you were talking about the Lebanon 2006 conflict, not Gaza, not in Iran, nothing ever. They have supported, okay? They have sometimes used World War II surplus weapons. They have had logistical support. They have never had boots on the ground once. This is exactly indicative of everything else that they do, is they throw out some hyperbolic, fictional nonsense that inflames their base, that gets everyone really excited, rabid, foaming at the mouth. But if you actually challenge it, there's no there there, which is why they don't debate. They can throw it out, but then they can also make sure that nobody's ever going to hear about the counter. So it's easy if you're just doing a monologue. You can lie as much as you want, and these people do it like it is their concert.
And again, because nobody's doing the fact checking, nobody's doing their due diligence, and we are about to be joined by our MIA co-host, Marcus Mend, the Dude Stern. It would not be a fun show without him. And Mend, you missed our early reporting that Golan was sadly discriminated against, and he was banned from Instagram and Facebook, and he joins the likes of me from being banned from dating apps. Mend, have you been banned from anywhere?
I have not. No, I think I got banned on an X before Elon bought it, and then they opened it back up.
And Men goes all the way. He gets banned in real life. He doesn't get banned online. Men goes all the way. I just watched the video of Men doing some tree trimming that, you know, if you're going to get banned because you're doing some serious physical shit.
If people like Mend were banned from the gym, I might go.
I don't believe that.
People like Mend are the reason I don't go to the gym. It's way too intimidating. And Mend, we've been discussing a lot, because I know you missed it, about the Tucker Carlsons and these isolationist factions of the party. And I know we had this conversation, Mend, yesterday on the phone where you were really shocked by some of the information that you heard coming out about who's funding these isolationists, and all that stuff. So if you could talk quickly about that, that would be great.
First, I'd like to call him by his correct name. I think Mark Levin coined this one. It's Tucker Carlson. So yes, there was some discussion about the people, and again, this is not from sources that I've vetted. This is just people discussing it. So I don't know how valid all of it is, but what they're saying is that within the administration, there's two camps. There's one camp, the Tucker Carlson's camp, which is funded and supported by Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood, and they are pushing Muslim Brotherhood aligned people into that part of the administration that they can. So when there's, say, in Tulsi's group of people that she's brought in, it is concerning. If Qatar funded groups like Tucker are pushing for people with those views, which are banned in many Muslim countries like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like Dubai, all those places have banned the Muslim Brotherhood. And these people, this fringe group within the conservative movement, is pushing for those types of people to be in the administration. That is a problem. And that is going to be an even bigger problem if, God forbid, Trump keels over and parts of that group actually gain more control over the administration. So it's something to be on the lookout for. It all stems back. I mean, like everything else in the Middle East, it all has a source. And this source was twofold. It was Iran and Qatar, and now it's Qatar. And then there's a weird convergence where other countries and entities, their goals align with these goals. So you have China, and China's goal is just to weaken America. So if they have more of these Muslim Brotherhood backed insane people in the government, that's good for China. So China would be pushing for that. And the same thing goes with Russia. You know, Russia would want to have more division, more of these bad people. So they would be pushing. So all of the bad actors kind of gang up and they all come up with these terrible ideas. And then you have these influencers like Tucker Carlson that are pushing it.
And you got to sometimes really connect the dots, people, is his point. It's an extremely painful thing to do right now, Golan, is connect the dots, because we don't want to think that people that are serving our government, that we voted in, that we supported, that we rooted for. But this happens to us over and over again. We didn't learn our lesson from Candace. We didn't learn our lesson from Kanye West. So Tulsi says something we like. Bring her on board. This person says something we like. Bring her on board. And it comes back to bite us in the ass, Golan.
Yeah, and sometimes it's because of the optics, as Men has pointed out, when you see a Black woman saying the things that you feel align with your perspective, you're like, we don't have a lot of Black women in our particular tent, so let's just bring her in and not worry about what's going to happen next. And essentially, you've opened the door to something that can turn around and bite you, not because she's a Black woman, but because she's a psychopath and an opportunist. She sees what's going to get her clicks, and then she says that thing. And you can go back and look at what she said prior that is entirely different. You go back and look at Tucker's old stuff, it's a completely different human being. than who Tucker is now. And it's not because of evolution and he changed because of his thoughts. You can read in the space how crass he just is, shaping himself into whatever someone else wants him to be. Candace just did it on a much faster track.
So, men, this is just breaking. The Iranian foreign minister, Abbas, whatever, suggested Monday that one phone call from President Trump could pave the way for return to diplomacy in the Middle East. If President Trump is genuine about diplomacy and interested in stopping the war, next steps are consequential. Israel must halt its aggression, and absent total cessation of military aggression against us, our responses will continue, he wrote on X. It takes one phone call. The problem is it's going to be reported as Iran wants to negotiate. This isn't what you call a negotiation, men. You don't say, this is what you have to do as you're getting annihilated.
Okay, so a couple of things here. One is it's important to note that Iran started this war in 1979 with the Islamic Revolution and their promise to death to America, death to Israel. This is the Israelis finishing the war. I saw online this morning that the Iranians said that if the U.S. promises not to get involved in this war, because it looks like the U.S. is gearing up to actually send over some firepower and possibly end the nuclear program on behalf of the free world. So the report that I saw was the Iranians came out and they said if the U.S. does not get involved in the war, we'd be willing to get back to the negotiating table. Yeah, they're taking a shellacking. They're getting their asses handed to them. I don't think that they're going to make it back to diplomatic channels. I think this regime needs to fall, and I think that the Iranian nuclear program needs to be completely dismantled. How do you get that? You know, a lot of people are saying that you can't get to these super deep underground bunkers. Well, the way you get to that is you have the regime collapse, and then you send in the special forces, and they go into those bunkers. You don't need to bomb it. They just march their way in, and whoever the new regime
100%.
is lets them in, lets them dismantle.
Can I say one thing before you continue?
Yeah.
I got to give men the dude Stern. We go back and forth all the time. I'm right most of the time. But his assessment of this conflict has been better than anybody I have heard on any news network, anybody. Your assessment has been spot on. Perfect. Seriously congratulate you with your assessment.
Thank you for that. Going back to what we were talking about a minute ago, which was the shift that a lot of these people have taken in recent months and years, like the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons. I have a tweet here from 2020 by Candace. Iran murdered 63 Canadian citizens in their missile attack and is now legitimately attempting to destroy the evidence. Contain the black box and blame the West. Shame on every single one of you leftist sociopaths that spent the last 2 weeks defending this abhorrent regime. So that was her in 2020 talking about Iran before she was bought by Qatar. This is the exact same person that we're seeing today with severe mental illness, spewing pro-Hamas, pro-Iran, anti-Israel, anti-American garbage. It just shows you, you know, we have history, we have a timeline. We could see what you did, what you used to say, where you were, and how fast you flipped, and how fast you sold out your own people, your own country, your own citizens for these tyrannical Islamists.
By the way, that tweet that we were sharing with each other in our personal WhatsApp group is one of so many where we can see exactly what was being said prior. Same thing with Tucker, same thing with a lot of these people. By the way, same thing, whether you like her or not, Tulsi Gabbard was someone who I really, really respected at one point. I remember the first time I saw her on Joe Rogan, and I really hadn't listened to her that much. And when I listened to her do this extended conversation, this is years ago. This is after she got kicked out of the Democratic side of things for daring to say something against Hillary Clinton and against Kamala Harris. She went on there, and everything she said, I was like, this lady is really smart, really principled. God, everything she says is well explained. She knows her history. And then a handful of years later, she was on Bill Maher. I'll never forget it. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens now. This girl who I remember being so impressed with. And suddenly everything she was saying, even though I agreed with some of it, felt like she was just repeating talking points. She wasn't backing it up. Suddenly the history lesson was no longer there. It just felt like she was repeating what the doctrine was in that particular group. And it killed me. And it's the same thing we see now with a lot of these people. They just say whatever it is they need to say to be on that side of it.
So I saw those same interviews with her. I've been following her for a while. I always thought she was very principled, and I thought she had her head on straight, and she's a patriot. So I haven't seen anything to contradict those beliefs about her. I know there's a lot of swirling talking points and rumors going around, but I haven't seen anything concrete. So I'm still a fan of Tulsi's until I see something concrete that tells me otherwise.
What I saw was years before any of the talk was out there. It was just me being like head to the side, like a dog that was curious, going, wait, what happened to that woman I heard speak on Rogan? That's all it was.
By the way, I just want to say something. There have been a lot of people that have served our country admirably. There have been a lot of people that have done great things for this country that we disagree with. I mean, I'm sure those 51 people that lied about Hunter Biden's laptop, probably half of them served the country in some form or another in the army.
Out that was demonstrably bullshit. They
100%.
lied, rigged an election with that lie. That lie could have shifted who won the election. And none of them have ever come forward and admitted that they lied and tried to do a coup or throw out a sitting president. There's nothing like that here. There is nothing even close to that here. There's no evidence of anything.
That's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying. What I was simply saying was just because somebody has served, it doesn't take off the table the fact that we could question. And that's all I'm doing. I have no definitive proof, and I'm not spreading rumors. I have no definitive proof. As I've said to you many times, we all have a specialty here. Your specialty on Middle East stuff and many other things is incredible, your acumen for that. I sometimes am a connect the dotter. Again, I could often be wrong too. I want to move on to one of our final topics, which is, as we witnessed this weekend with the shootings in Minnesota, the riots that have gone on, and this is all being propagated by the leftist media. They are being gaslit. We have to call it as it is. And when you see people like Karen Bass and Newsom blaming Trump and the media blaming Trump, it's absolutely asinine, men, and it defies logic. But there is no logic. They have zero logic, and they're losing.
Yeah, there's a common thread with these attacks that we're seeing. Violence is breaking out primarily on one side. The pro-Hamas riots are all lefties and people in keffiyehs and Islamists. The anti-ICE riots are lefties, people in keffiyehs. And this latest attack was by a Democrat operative who was appointed to office by the governor of Minnesota. And he executed or attempted to execute, I believe it's 2 senators. He went from one house to another house. They're not going to paint that accurately. They're not going to show what his ideological views were. He had the No Kings flyers in his car. He had a target list, and he was killing sane Democratic elected officials. I mean, this violence is primarily on one side. For the last 4 years, we had them screaming about white males are a threat to our democracy. And here we actually have violent lunatics roaming the streets, and the left come out and condemn violence, but they will not come out and condemn left-wing violence, which is the way they love to say it when it's the other way. They love to say extreme right-wing or right-wing, blah, 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 and paint everybody with that brush. They don't do it when it comes to their side. So I think it's worth noting where the violence is coming from, where the actual threat to our democracy is coming from.
Well said. Go on.
I think that this is just indicative of a larger problem that we have. When we look at even the way that now they're reporting on this, when someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, for instance, gets into a fight and defends himself by shooting somebody, it becomes this is the new Nazi. But when Mangione shoots a healthcare CEO, the media's tone is soft, the media's tone is conciliatory. It becomes something where they kind of make it a muted, careful language story. You know, are they talking about domestic terrorism and do they go crazy? No, they don't. And I think this fuels something. This makes people see that they can be treated as heroes in the same way that the monster who shot the 2 Israeli diplomats in D.C. was. Same kind of thing. Whenever the violence is happening on the left side of the equation, the media does this soft shoe and they disappear the story fairly quickly, unless it's to say, we're just asking questions, like these podcasters of the media kind of emulate this tone of, is it really that bad that this happened? Wasn't it kind of justified? And on and on and on. So the idea that they are basically saying this guy who had a list of 70 targets, and was going house to house and actually doing the execution as if he was a judge, jury, and executioner, was someone that maybe had a point. Maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe we can look into what's going on with him. This is what happens when a society excuses political violence, whether it's BLM riots, whether it's campus mobs for Antifada, whether it's anyone who basically says that it's okay for this chaos to bleed into the real world. You do that, you normalize political rage, and guess what? This is the result.
And the last thing I want to get to, and I'm sorry you missed part of the early party. I know you're extremely busy running American Exceptionalism. Go visit American Exceptionalism's site. But people often confuse regime change and the people toppling their government. So what we witnessed in Syria was a bunch of people that wanted their freedom. And that's the hope that we have to have that happens in Iran. So Men's whole point in his assessment of the situation was, I don't even think he realized how quickly Israel would be able to take Iran's so much of their arsenal and decimate them really quickly, that I don't know if the people have had a chance yet to get together and go, holy crap, we could take down the Ayatollah. It's not our job to take out the Ayatollah. I agree with Trump telling Bibi no 100%. There's a difference between killing a political leader and killing a religious leader. You kill a religious leader, you set off a world war, man.
Okay, so one is I disagree. I think that guy should be dead. They should take him out. It's a symbolic move where you see Hassan Nasrallah dead. You see Yahya Sinwar dead. You got to see this guy. He should just be done. And it's a really strong message to the next guy who gets up there. Fafo, you fuck around, you're going to find out. As far as the people of Iran, they are dancing in the streets. There's video after video coming out where they're chanting death to the Ayatollah. The people are rising up. It's amazing what Israel managed to accomplish, how Iran really got caught with their pants down. Just yesterday, Israel took out a third of the Iranian missile launchers. So you can't get to the underground bunkers where they store this stuff. But every time they come above ground, getting ready to fire these things, Israel has their fighter jets in the air above Iran, and they're taking these things out, which severely hampers the amount of missiles they could launch at a single time. And that's very important because the Iron Dome and the David Sling and all these different shields that Israel has for missile protection can get overwhelmed, which is why Iran sends all these cheap Shihad drones and all that other stuff at the same time. They're just trying to overwhelm the system. And it's also important to note with the war in Ukraine and this war with Iran, what armies around the world are learning is that you need to have a lot of drones. So we're going to see drone aircraft carriers, which is just going to be loaded up. Instead of having 30 fighter jets on it, it could have 30,000 drones, and they're just going to show up and decimate an enemy's army. So that's what's happening here. There's a lot of really important intelligence coming out where they're learning on the ground how to fight these wars and how to win these wars. And the Israelis are doing a fantastic job at protecting their citizens and taking out the bad guys.
Extremely well said. And Golan, I want to agree with him 100%. I do about the Ayatollah, but I'd rather it be the people dancing on the street that Gaddafi him.
Okay, so men, I love you, and I love the idea of this guy being dead with you 100%. I wish I could do it myself. Here's the thing, is the Ayatollah lives not because he deserves mercy, not because he's a good guy, not because we don't want him to be dead, but because killing him unifies the enemy. It actually gives them a reason to fight. It makes him a martyr and makes him a symbol. Makes him a symbol that is really hard to overcome, because now it's not someone we're fighting that is just, oh, this piece of shit that's throwing a bunch of stuff at us. He becomes not only the religious symbol, but the unifying symbol for the entire region. And we've seen the movie before, man. Every time America tries to overthrow a regime without letting the people actually be the catalyst for it, it backfires. If you think about Iraq, if you think about Libya, if you think about Syria or even Afghanistan, we topple tyrants. We end up arming like the resistance. Then it turns out they're terrorists. We end up babysitting. Gaddafi goes. What happened? Fail state. Open air slave markets. ISIS uses it as a launching ground. It's chaos. You think about what happened with Iraq. Same kind of thing over and over and over again. But here's the thing that makes this different and it makes it perfect. The Iranian people, the awesome, as we've spoken about, Iranian people, they hate this guy. They don't want Sharia law. They don't want the Ayatollah. They don't want the extremists running their country. They want to be free. They were free at one point, and they want to be free again. And right now, as we're watching Israel launch missiles into Iran, we're seeing the people in the streets holding up signs saying, Ayatollah die. The regime needs to fall. They are cheering this on, and it's not an underground thing. We are watching it start today. Today, car bombs were being exploded all over the country by the resistance, not by Israel, not by the Mossad, not by anybody else, except for the people inside Iran. They want this to happen, and all they need to know is that they've been given tacit approval, that America's on their side, or that Israel's on their side, or that there is a vulnerability. What Israel's been doing is basically giving them permission to do it. That lion with the sword is the people of Iran. And if we can get them to rise up and topple this regime, then we don't need to. And it becomes something that becomes permanent. It sticks. That's the difference.
Well, I don't think it's that important whether or not they kill him. I think they should have, but it's not going to make or break anything. I don't know about him becoming a martyr and a symbol. You know, Hassan Nasrallah is not a symbol of anything, and Yahya Sinwar is not a symbol of anything. He's just dead. So fine, they don't take him out. Maybe they're leaving him alive so that he could surrender. I think that's what they're doing.
Those guys were not religious leaders.
I was about to say that too.
Hassan Nasrallah was the religious leader. He was the biggest whatever.
No, he was a leader, but he was not a religious figure. He was someone that they might have respected within the religion, but he was not a religious figure. They hung Jesus on a cross, and Christianity became the biggest thing in the world and never stopped. Religious figures are the ones that start moving.
Okay, fine. We could agree to disagree on this one. I don't even think it's the biggest deal in the world that they don't take him out. The people of Iran are standing up for themselves. It does look like there's the beginnings of a rebellion, and they might free themselves from this regime. Let's see how this goes. It's going to be interesting to watch what unfolds over the next couple of days. I would love to see it come to an end. I would love to see them capitulate, surrender, and give up their nuclear weapons, and no more death and destruction on all sides. That would be an ideal ending right now. I don't think they will. I think they're still bluffing, and I think they're still posturing as they get their asses kicked. So
100%. I think you're 100% correct. And I just want to finish it on this. We're not going to see that story from Iranian TV because they have to move locations after they got bombed this morning. And Mend, I don't know if you saw the image, and this is where Americans on the left or that decry and talk about feminism and all this stuff. You're watching this Iranian reporter dressed from, the whole thing from top to bottom. If she was dressed in any other way, she would have been hanging in the studio as opposed to sitting down as that rocket hit.
yeah, it's great. They're there in the full garbage bag attire from head to toe with the eyes peeking out. And sometimes in Iran, they let them show their face as well. But the people that are defending this regime this regime hates women. They hate gays. They hate anything Western. So you have Western idiots defending the regime. Reminds me of the Western moron convoy that went to Egypt to try to liberate Gaza, and the Egyptians beat the hell out of them, beat the living crap out of these people. And the people are crying to the Egyptians, let us go help your Muslim brothers. And another thing that's interesting about that convoy was they were headed to the wrong destination. They were going to try to cross Sinai and make it to Eilat, which is on the other side of the country. They didn't even know where they were going. Half of them are back on planes and the other half are stuck in the desert. So that's working out great. It would be great if Greta Thunberg could go with them as well.
So on final thought.
Well, I have nothing to add on that front, except that it was really fun to watch that video where the woman in the full body niqab is just shouting nonsensically. And as she's just spreading the propaganda of this terrorist regime, and then just watching her flinch and the entire green screen goes out and all the dust and debris falls. I'll say, I think I found my new screensaver.
And this story will be continued. This is obviously not ending anytime in the immediate future, everything we've discussed today. So on that note, I want to remind everybody, go to Apple, download the podcast, go to Spotify, go to YouTube. You can see what we look like and follow us there and comment. And also, of course, Substack, the daily cheat sheet. and everywhere you could download the podcast. Come and join the party. It's sort of sadly fun. And on that note, I will say to everybody, good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are.